right, so awesome. We are here with Sav Rodgers, and I'm super excited to be talking with him. Um, yeah, so let's jump on in and tell us a little bit about your creative and or professional background, what you do, how you got there, that kind of thing.
Sure thing. Well, hi, Allison. Thanks for having me. Just so the audience at home knows, we met in the Artist Inc. Advanced cohort. You're there for your brilliant work as a painter. I'm there because I make movies, I guess.
Robbie is a filmmaker.
And we also do a weekly accountability group where we talk about our goals and we progress there, and we became pals through that. So everybody should know how rad you are as well. In terms of my experience, I'm a filmmaker. I started, I don't know, 6.5 years ago, like really pursuing film, which is weird because that's longer than I've done basically anything. And besides be alive, I guess. And I just started trying to crew up on other people's things. I knew I wanted to be a director, and so I tried to seek out opportunities that I knew would give me on-set experience, but also help me be a better creator. And I think that process of aspiring to be a lifelong learner has been really helpful and valuable. And so what I do now is I primarily am working on a documentary called Chasing Amy, which is all about my quest, I guess, to find out why the LGBTQ community feels so strongly about Chasing Amy, and also explore my own relationship with the film, which is very, very specific. And it's been a really fun process. Other than that, I love to do narrative films. I haven't had the chance to do one in a while. And I also do client work. So I think by necessity, I've had to become a jack of all trades to some sort, master of none, definitely. But it's been a super great experience just getting to know people and make things and to try to improve in my creative practice.
Nice. So when you say client work, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like what kinds of things have you done for other people? What do they ask you to do?
Sure. So in terms of client work, I've done stuff from the commercial world, political ads, things like that, and all the way to, working with local nonprofits or activist groups, just trying to help them get their messages out there with video. So it just depends. Um, I haven't directed like a huge national spot or anything like that, but I do get paid fairly consistently for working with clients, which has been really nice. And it's, again, helped me develop my skill set, give them a product that they really wanted. And it's been a really interesting growing experience, because ideally you can make your creative practice, if you want to, a business that sustains you, so you don't have to work 10 jobs just to get by.
Yeah, definitely. That's super important as a creative. um, okay, so next thing I want to talk about is your TED Talk. Talk to me about your TED Talk.
What do you want to know about my TED Talk, Allison?
Well, when did you do it? Where did you do it? What did you talk about? All that good stuff.
All right. So basically, on a whim in the summer of 2018 or late spring 2018, I saw an ad for the TED residency, which I thought was strange. But you know how Facebook does that? They see that you search something or you look something up or you talk about something, and then
Yep.
it immediately appears in your ads, right?
Yep.
I feel like I'm the only dude on the planet who's ever been really happy with his Facebook ads. And at the time I was in the Charlotte Street studio residency in Kansas City, it was a great experience, and I just kind of applied to this on a whim. It was the day of the deadline, and I was like, all right, I don't really have a real idea for a TED Talk, but maybe they would like my reel or something like that, and want to bring me in. And so I basically gave a vague pitch on wanting to talk about LGBTQ representation, which was super, vague. But again, I was like, well, I'm a filmmaker. I have opinions on things. Like maybe I could develop my skill set as a public speaker enough to be able to talk about it. And so I submitted it, didn't think of it. A couple months later, I heard back that I was a finalist for this opportunity. What I didn't really realize was that I applied through Adobe's Project 1324, which unfortunately no longer exists, but it was an initiative to get people between ages 13 and 24 involved in creative activities with like larger organizations to help them develop their own creative practices. So what I had applied for was a sponsored spot in the TED residency, and which means that they pay for you to go out to New York and experience it and all that. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. I love this. And I was excited about the interview, but I tried to like not put too much pressure on myself because I was like, this is way above my pay grade. You know, I feel like as a creative, I'm constantly hitting above my weight class, you know, and just like hoping it works out.
Sure.
And so I went into the interview with the folks at TED, and we just got along famously. It was just a really nice experience where I was like, wow, I don't know if I'm going to get into this, but I'd really like to maybe have a beer with them sometime if I get to go to New York.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had never lived outside of Kansas, and and I'd been looking for a reason to move to a coast to start to meet new people and expand my creative practice in that way. And so in the interview, they were like, well, your TED Talk pitch was really vague, but we like you. We like your reel. We like that you make movies. And, you know, we would love to have somebody like you in the program. And I was like, oh, cool. And they were like, well, what would you give your TED Talk about if you had to give it tomorrow? And I told them about my idea for a documentary called Chasing Amy, which I talked about a little bit before. But basically, my relationship with Chasing Amy was that I saw the movie when I was 12, living here in Kansas. And when I was growing up, it wasn't a super friendly environment for LGBTQ people. I mean, I can still remember a lot of the horrible things kids would say to me at school, right? And like everybody deals with terrible things in school, but I was a very sensitive young person, closeted as queer and trans, and it was pretty overwhelming. And this was a movie that really made me feel better and quite literally saved my life because it was like a life raft. You know, I didn't really think about my identity too much, but it was a source of comfort, and it really was a thing that, you know, kept me alive for a long time. And it seems a little dramatic, but you know what that movie meant to me was so profound. And so I basically told them all this, told them a little bit of my life story, and told them that I wanted to make a documentary about it and seek out conversation with people about, well, why is Chasing Amy so controversial? And they just kind of sat there for a second after I dumped all this on them, as people tend to do. And they were like, that is the most specific pitch for a TED Talk we've ever heard.
Out of your
And
whole vague thing is now super specific.
exactly. And it was, you know, we all kind of had a laugh about it, and they were talking about how they either love Chasing Amy, or the intern who was in the interview was like, oh, I'm gonna watch it now. And the senior person there, Cindy Stivers, she was like, oh, well, I used to work at Time Out magazine, and we actually gave Ben Affleck his first cover around that time. And it was just like, it was a very serendipitous thing. And also Time Out had been featured in Chasing Amy, showing that it was like the cool young people like magazine at the time. And so it was just a very like serendipitous thing. And they were like, well, we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. And little did I know, they'd already picked the person that they wanted. Her name's Kemi Leanne, and she's brilliant. She's from Virginia, and we both actually got selected for the program because they were like, can we have 2 slots? And so Adobe flew both of us out to New York, put us up, and we lived there and participated in the TED residency for 3 months. We both lived there for like 4 months. In New York, and we went to 330 Hudson Street every day, working on our projects for the TED residency. And it was just the most incredible experience. You know, that was the first opportunity I think I had had in my life where I was around all these really brilliant multidisciplinary artists, or, you know, activists, or people who just worked in all these different mediums. Like there was a doctor who basically discovered like the disproportionate rates of asthma in Black and brown communities in New York. Like that was her study. My friend Luce, you know, like there were photographers, there were activists from, you know, my friend Yana from Bulgaria is like this human rights activist and given 4 TED Talks before.
Wow.
And so the opportunity to be around all those people really showed me, it's like, oh, you don't just have to do this one thing, but if you do want to do this one thing, you can expand your practice in a really thoughtful, meaningful way with the way you engage with other people. And I think I turned 24 in that residency. It was just the most wonderful experience I think a person could have, like getting thrust into the real world, so to speak. And so I had given a graduation speech the year before, and that was pretty much my only time public speaking before then. And when I was younger, I had a stutter, and sometimes I still stutter when I don't really know what to say and things like that. And so it felt like a real triumphant moment being able to like get up there and talk about this thing that had so much power over me, these experiences I had as a kid that just made me deeply sad, and to talk about what Chasing Amy did for me and what it means to see yourself on screen. So it was just a really incredible experience. I ultimately moved to New York September 1st, 2018, having never lived anywhere outside of Kansas before, and adapted quickly to New York, I think. Delivered the TED Talk in December 2018, and then shot my first 2 days of Chasing Amy, starting on the last day of the TED residency. I'd spent the entire time researching for my TED Talk and trying to meet as many people and trying to figure out how I was going to shoot New York interviews, because Adobe was, again, paying my bills and we didn't have any money for the movie at the time. So we were trying to really make everything stretch and last. And it was seriously the most beautiful experience, a very pure experience that I wish I could go back to all the time. Like I could get like teary about it, but I sincerely loved my time in the TED residency, and I would love to do anything with TED again. I loved it so much.
Wow. That sounds like an awesome experience.
I really will cry. I loved it. And those people all mean so much to me. I grew tremendously thanks to them. I made friends and collaborators for life. One of the people who I met at TED, Sammy, he's on the board of the Transgender Film Center, which we founded last year. Mm-hmm. And it's just some really great lifelong connections. But being at TED led me to going to LA for the Outset Fellowship, where I met not only two more board members for the Trans Film Center, but like mentors and friends, and like my writing partner, Taylor Gates. Like, so many great things like came as a result of TED taking a chance on me and thinking this documentary was a good idea. And I got super lucky. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. Well, you could tell us how you met Kevin Smith.
So this is another TED thing. So when I was at TED, they were like, okay, so, let's figure out how to get your story into a TED Talk. And so I didn't really know what to do at first. I was kind of like stumped. And they were like, well, some of the best TED Talks are personal stories. And I was like, well, okay. Well, I don't know how many other people are going to care about my story, but maybe I could reach Kevin Smith. Maybe this is the opportunity to make a really good first impression. And so I gave that TED Talk for me. I gave it in hopes that like parents of queer and trans kids would see it. I gave that TED Talk for a lot of reasons, but in terms of the documentary, the primary motivation was to get Mr. Kevin Patrick Smith to see it and to be like, hey, Sav, I'm going to take you under my wing.
Did he?
It actually worked. Okay, so that's jumping ahead. So I gave the TED Talk, and like Bob Hawke, who is the guy that discovered Kevin Smith, was there. Basically, in October 1993 at IFFM, which was this film market at the Angelica Theater in New York. It was like, this market where you would take films that were ready for like distribution and things like that. There was one guy who showed up to the screening. There was one guy outside of the cast and crew of Clerks, and that guy's name was Bob Hawke, who is just brilliant, a wonderful man. He is like the gay godfather of independent film. If you look up his IMDb page, you will certainly see a movie that you love, or an important film on there that you identify with. And he is the guy that unknowingly discovered Kevin Smith and really helped set Kevin on his path by just telling people to take a chance on the film. He was also one of the people that made Sundance what it is, being on their advisory board. I believe that's what his role was, but he was also like programming, writing programmer notes, things like that. And so I got to meet Bob as a result of the TED residency, because somebody had a connection there. And so getting to know him was an immense privilege. And I just remember Bob Hawke saying like, hey, when your TED Talk comes out, I will send it to Kevin. I'll send him a text. And I was like, fantastic. Because he also agreed that the best way to meet with Kevin was to have this be the first impression. Mm-hmm. which is advice that I'm extremely grateful for, because the day the TED Talk came out on April 30th, 2019, I was driving to Las Vegas with my now wife. We were in the car and the TED Talk had just come out, and I was like, well, it'll be good. We're going to drive to Vegas and like see my parents because they had flown in there, and it was going to be really great to to like not think about like the pressure of like, okay, how well is this going to do? I was just going to enjoy a 4-hour drive with my wife in the car. And then as we're pulling out of the gas station, Kevin Smith tweets that he has seen it, he loves it, and that we like call him if I wanted him to be involved, which was a totally overwhelming experience. And I annoyed the heck out of my wife for the next few hours, being like, did anything else happen? Did anything else happen? Because I'm driving. So poor Riley, so sorry. And so like the next day, like I just called his rep, because I like called the office of his rep, because I was like, hi, so Kevin Smith tweeted that he would help me with my documentary. It's the last tweet on his profile if you want to look at it. And then I guess somebody like from his team like saw that I had called like through the proper channels, and he just like DM'd me through Twitter after that, was like, hey, text me. And I was like, hi, this is Sav. Is this Kevin? And he called me after that. And I'm like having breakfast like with my folks in like this Las Vegas like casino, the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, which also no longer exists. Everything like dies after I go there, I guess. And so there's footage of me from like my wife's cell phone where I'm just pacing around this like slot machine while Kevin Smith talks to me on the phone for 20 minutes. And he's just like, oh, I love the TED Talk. And, you know, he was talking about how he was excited. He's like, oh, we'll do a joint interview with Joey. Then she'll go home and we'll do an interview. And like was trying to direct the thing in true Kevin form. And just, you know, the documentary is a personal one. It's never been like objective about my relationship with chasing Amy. It's a personal endeavor where I try to, you know, I can't change how I feel about chasing Amy, but I also hold no ill will for anybody who dislikes chasing Amy. And so it was a really great opportunity to have this friendship and mentorship with somebody who I just thought would maybe appear in the movie, who turned out to be just a great human being in a way that I couldn't have anticipated, because it just seemed like something somebody would write in like a fan fiction where it's like my day with Kevin Smith. Like it just seemed like ridiculous to think that that would happen, but he has been nothing but kind and generous and just an overall lovely human being to be around for me personally. Now, I did tell Kevin, I was like, hey, so people are not going to say very nice things about you in the documentary. You know that, right? Like a lot of people have an issue with this movie. And he was like, well, that would be a boring movie, of course. And so I was like, okay, as long as you know that. And that's what it is. Totally overwhelming the first time I met him. We got that on camera though. Like I was texting him. I was like, the first time I meet you, I kind of wanted to have it on camera. And he's like, cool. Do you want to find me inside the house or do you want me to come to the front door? And I was like, inside the house would be cool. So it's like, it's cool that he's like a filmmaker and gets it and is super supportive of like a young filmmaker coming up because of something he made. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't be more grateful for that relationship. And I swear by the fact that he's been like a super cool dude to me, and I couldn't be luckier, I guess.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Allison, am I talking too much? Do you want to talk more?
This is great. I keep going.
All right.
What next? Okay, so you mentioned the Transgender Film Center already, and you talked about Kevin Smith and all your success and your super awesome TED Talk. So let's talk about the Transgender Film Center. What is it? What is your role in it? And what are you guys trying to do?
Awesome question. So the Transgender Film Center is a nonprofit that I founded in November 2020. We were working on it longer than that, but we recently launched the Transgender Film Center, and it's a nonprofit dedicated to connecting trans-made films with audiences around the world. And right now, our first initiative was called the Trailblazer Grant, which just closed for submissions, but will open up later in the year for our 2022 grant. And basically, the idea of the grant is to try to literally invest into transgender filmmakers. You know, for our community, it can be really dire for trans people not to have the opportunity to play themselves or to have an opportunity to speak as to what it is to be trans. A lot of people have made guesses in the past, and it has ultimately resulted in this conflation of what trans people are. You know, a lot of people assume that trans people are just people who have taken drag too far. There are a lot of people don't really have an understanding of what it's like to be us. And so for us to have a voice in the room, a seat at the table, or to create our own tables where we're creating our own work, it ultimately enriches the palette, the overall palette of storytelling, right? And it creates for a more authentic experience when you're watching a film about trans people by trans people, or just watching a film by a trans person that has nothing to do with contemplating identity about our transness, right? And so we just want to support those people. When I was coming out as trans, you know, I had known I was trans for a long time, and I was really nervous about it because there was really nowhere for me to turn to in terms of institutional support that didn't really exist. Like, there are people who had been doing like some things with trans media. There were specific initiatives for more dire things for our community. Like, you know, there are great organizations that support trans people who are homeless, who are in dire situations. But for me, my lane that I occupy is that I can support trans people who want to make movies, because I know about wanting to make movies. I know about the things that are needed to have a successful run with your movie. And I know what I wished I had when I was coming up, and what would have made me feel safe and be supported in my journey as a filmmaker. And if I had been able to come out as trans earlier, that would have been awesome. But sorry, I'm not gonna cry. I'm trying not to sneeze. Um, and so this is an opportunity, I think, for me to try to give back a little bit, because I've had the opportunity to be incredibly selfish in some ways, by being able to pursue chasing Amy with not reckless abandon, but a lot of enthusiasm without having to think about much else. And so with this pandemic, I was feeling really down about, well, what are my options? I can't go out and make my movie. I can't do a lot of the things that I was able to do. And I was really angry about the circumstances I was in. So I wanted to take that energy and put it into something positive. It turned out to be a ton of work, but it's worth it. And so we put together a great board of really incredible people who are also on this same mission to support trans creatives, and to build an infrastructure that exists for them beyond any one of us individually. And so it's my hope that this will help people understand more about our community, but also to the main priority is to support these artists who are often overlooked or aren't prioritized for funding or things like that. You know, a lot of grant initiatives have gone away during the pandemic, which is scary. A lot of these things that independent filmmakers or just people in general depended on have gone away because a lot of their sources of funding have dried up. And so by making a nonprofit during this pandemic, we're trying to, it's not necessarily a statement, but I do think that it is reflective of the fact that we want to support trans people when they need it most. And I know a ton of trans creatives that are hurting right now. And this organization is very specific, but I think it could have a huge impact because it could really help elevate some really brilliant filmmakers who don't often get the chance to shine. And I'm hoping that with our organization, they'll have the opportunity to shine.
Yeah. So the grant, is it like nationally people can apply for it, or regionally, or?
Yeah. So in this last grant cycle, we were open to everybody in the United States. You just had to live here, and you had to be 18, and you had to have a narrative or documentary film, could be a feature or a short, and you could apply. I don't know what the terms will be for the next grant cycle, but we tried to keep things in a way that was manageable for us for the size that we were at that point. Hopefully later in the year, it'll be a different story, and maybe we could even expand it. I don't know. But we're trying to have a reasonable amount of growth where we're not taking too much on too fast, and then we get overwhelmed and then we let people down and things like that. The purpose of the organization is to support people in the ways that we can support them. So hopefully, if people are interested in supporting us and helping us grow, please consider making a donation. If you donate $50 or more, you can become a founding donor. And that means your name can live on our website forever because you helped us found this institution. And so $50 or more, transgenderfilmcenter.org/donate can be of a lot of help. Obviously, we'd love more if you could spare it. But there is really no donation that's too big or too little. It all goes towards helping us build something that I think is pretty special, and I think a lot of people are going to benefit from.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry. Trying to figure out how to segue into this question. I guess there isn't really one.
You don't need to segue. Just ask me anything. I'm here for you.
Okay, cool. Are you allowed to talk about Sundance?
Yeah, so we have panels for Chasing Amy and the Transgender Film Center at the 2021 Sundance Film Festival through the satellite screens and Beyond Film programming done with Mama Film, which is my friend Leela Met-O'Connor's organization. She is a co-producer on Chasing Amy. She has been an advisor to me for everything, but also the Transgender Film Center. And so through the partnership with Sundance and Mama Film, we've got a panel that'll be available to anybody to watch for both the Transgender Film Center and Chasing Amy. You don't need a pass. You just have to go to the Sundance website and watch it. And so for Chasing Amy, there is a panel all about pivoting during a pandemic, which is kind of a pain in the neck when you've got a feature doc that's on track to finish at a certain point and they got to push it back by a year. But also how it changed our movie, I think, for the better. And then the Transgender Film Center panel is called Transforming Your Film Crew, which is all about meaningful hiring practices for trans crew and how you can create a safe space on set for trans people, what it means to hire trans people, and the ridiculous amount of trans talent that's out there that isn't as hard to find as you would think. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. And I'm really excited for people to see those panels. I think that hopefully there are some good takeaways from both of those. And hopefully my experiences with these separate entities can be of value to people who watch, and they can either say, oh, I'm not going to do that, I would never want to do that, or, oh, I can learn from this and take what you want from it, and hopefully it's a valuable experience for you.
That's awesome. Congratulations on getting that.
Thanks. It's I made the right friends, I guess.
Yeah, it's helpful. So other than that, is there anything else coming up in 2021 or beyond that you want to talk about that you're doing?
Well, I'm really excited to start a film teaching artist position with the Johnston County Arts and Heritage Center. That's going to be super fun. So if anybody watching this has kids that are interested in screenwriting, or anybody who's interested in film studies, I'll be teaching those classes, and I'm super stoked to just connect with people who also really love the art of writing for the screen or movies in general. And I think that it'll be a really fun time in both classes.
Nice. And when do those classes run?
February through March. So be sure to sign up so they let me teach them.
Yay. That's exciting. I don't think I have any other questions. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about?
I don't know. Is the chat hopping? What's going on with the chat?
I've been checking. I don't think so.
Tens of people, maybe?
Maybe
what?
Like
ones of people?
One minus one. No comments.
That is okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy to have had this chat with you. I think there's a lot of really cool things on the horizon for what the Transgender Film Center is doing, what's going to happen with Chasing Amy, and what my production company is up to. So I'm hoping that I'll get on set to make a narrative film in 2021. We'll see about that. Otherwise, I'm just writing a bunch, and I couldn't ask for more, except maybe for the pandemic to be over. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I feel that. One more thing, actually.
Yeah.
The Artist Sync Advance. So do you want to talk about what that is and what we're doing in it, and then how, like, the grant that we could possibly get from it would help you and what you're doing with that?
Sure. I mean, I knew what the intention was when we started the Artist Inc. program this time around. But a lot of things I think have changed in the pandemic. So basically through the Mid-America Arts Alliance, the Artist Inc. Advanced program is a continuation of Artist Inc. Live, which is basically teaching artists business skills. And so something super rad about that program is that this is a continuation of it, and you get to really like, it's effectively a thesis project for this kind of program. So I did my Artist Inc. Live fellowship in fall 2017, right after graduating from film school. And that was super helpful for me. And then I came back to Kansas City and I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And then a pandemic happened and I definitely stayed in Kansas City. And I had initially set out to make a film called Rewinder, but then with the Trans Film Center and the creation of it, I was like, well, this is going to be my project. And so I believe we're still on track to do our show for March. I haven't heard much about it though. And basically everybody presents what their project is that they've been working on, and you're applicable for 3 grants. There is a jury prize, an audience prize, and I don't know what the other one is. Allison, do you remember?
I think it's peer. I think we get to judge somebody else. Well,
yes.
each other.
Yes. And so basically, I think each of those grants are $1,000. So, I mean, and applying to and getting any of those grants would go a long way towards funding something for the Trans Film Center. I mean, we're right now we're in the phase of building out what our programming looks like for 2021 and what our roadmap is and the kinds of initiatives that we would like to create. Right now, we're really focused on funding and getting these grants done. But after that, the world's our oyster, so to speak. So $1,000 to a brand new nonprofit goes a long way. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, it would mean a lot to get that money, just as I'm sure it would mean a lot for you to get that money.
Yeah, you would.
Now, does the Arts and Heritage Center have any like fellowships or residencies or programs like that?
No, it doesn't. I think there's a want for it to have that kind of thing in the future.
Yeah.
But I know
someone's got to run that.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's has to be cleared through the county and all that stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think eventually, maybe, and I think the Arts Council as well wants to have a part to do with that too. So
that'd be rad.
I hope we can get something started in Johnson County.
That would be great. I grew up here, and the transformation of Johnson County from when I was a kid and how I perceived it to be friendly towards LGBTQ people to the fact that there's now a non-discrimination ordinance thanks to the folks at like Equality Kansas and other people who have been like really upset about the lack of protection for LGBTQ people. And the fact that this arts organization exists, the fact that y'all exist, blows my mind. And so I really couldn't be happier to be a part of the organization now. I couldn't be happier to get to know all of you over there. And I'm just so stoked that this is like a priority in Johnson County, because I never thought of it growing up as a place that would ever like someone like me. And so the fact that there's a whole arts organization that's, teaching pronouns and, talking about the gender spectrum and sexuality spectrum and, like affirming kids like me who did not have that support. It's just incredible. So I really love everything y'all are doing over there. And I really appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, I'm super excited that you're going to be joining our team.
I couldn't be more stoked. I've never taught before, but I'm really excited to, I don't know what kid doesn't love movies, but now I'm worried. I made all my lesson plans and stuff, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, what if they just watch TikTok? What if they just watch YouTube? Have they ever seen a movie?
Maybe not.
Where are we starting? Because honestly, like, I don't know, but I know, like, my friends' kids, like when, the parents don't want to deal with them anymore, they get the iPad and they're on YouTube. They're watching that kid who has like millions of dollars and just opens toys for a living.
Yeah. I mean, that kid's crazy.
The world is different now.
Awesome. It's bizarre. So bizarre.
I found Chasing Amy on a DVD. I don't know what streaming looks like to a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old now.
Yeah, I could probably guarantee you that if they were flipping through Netflix or whatever, they would not even think twice if they saw something. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
keep going.
Well, and my thought is like, what if I just bring in a VHS tape to class and I'm like, I'll give you $100 if you can tell me what this is.
Yeah, I don't know.
That probably won't get approved, and I might be at $100, so probably
Maybe.
won't. But you know what I mean? I feel like there might be more teaching necessary than maybe I thought. So I don't know. I've tried to incorporate some clips into there. I always loved when I got to see a clip, maybe just because I was obsessed with movies or didn't want to read the textbook. I don't know, but I always loved when there were clips. I always loved having a visual example, and this is a visual medium. So I'm hoping my teaching methods work out.
Yeah, I think you'll be great.
Thank you.
I'm excited to hear how it goes and how you like your first classes and just the overall experience.
Well, thank you, Allison, because you recommended me for the gig, and you know, it's like a big family over there at the art center, as far as I can tell.
It is, yes, yeah. It's pretty fun. What else? I can't think of anything else. Is that it?
It might be it. I don't know. I'm here. If you have more questions, you know me, happy to talk.
I know, and I'm glad.
Wow, I thought I talked for way longer, but it's only 36 minutes, so I was a little more succinct than I thought I was.
Yeah, very, very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have questions I want to ask, but I don't want to like open a can of worms I'm not supposed to open.
Oh, like what?
Well, okay. You remember when you were talking about the I Love Margot Robbie?
Oh yeah, I love you, Margot Robbie.
Talk about that. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, sure. So my friend Taylor Gates and I, we wrote a screenplay. It's a feature screenplay called I Love You, Margot Robbie. And I would love for this to get made. Like, I would love for this to get made. And it's all about this teenage trans boy who's, you know, dealing with, you know, his own gender identity, you know, what comes with other people knowing you're trans, you know, the struggles of asserting your masculinity as a 15-year-old who's all skin and bones, things like that. And now he's ultimately like very lonely. He doesn't have anybody to talk about these things with, and he doesn't really have any role models in the way that he would want. And so ultimately, he comes up with an imaginary friend in the form of Margot Robbie, who, and this could change. If I ever get to make the script, it might not even get to be Margot Robbie. It might not get to be any of these things, but effectively Margot Robbie is everywhere in his world because she's doing this Vegemite campaign. You know what Vegemite is? Yeah. So for people who don't know, Vegemite is like this sandwich spread effectively from Australia, which my dad's Australian. That's the only reason I know about it. But effectively, it's Vegemite trying to do an ad campaign in the United States. And so Margot Robbie is everywhere as their spokeswoman. And so his anxieties and his desire for like a best friend manifests in the form of A-list actor Margot Robbie. And I just think that's a fun premise of like, what would you do if like a celebrity was your imaginary best friend? You know, like I feel like that's how I relate to the world, you know, often, you know, what I see on TV, what I see in movies, what I see out in the world. So this kid with an overactive imagination, wonder where he got that from, just like dreams up this like friendship with Margot Robbie. And it's all about how that friendship ultimately changes him for the better and helps him get through his teen years. And so I love the script. I think it needs some work right now, but we did our first draft and I'm super stoked about it. We've already come up with some revisions that I'm excited about, but you know, we got pretty far in a few screenplay contests, and you know, we'll see what happens. Hopefully someday we can put it on the blacklist and it'll get a high score, and you know, maybe Margot Robbie will see it and pluck us from obscurity and be like, hey, here's money for a movie. We'll see.
That'd be awesome.
Highly unlikely, but I would like to make a version of this script someday. But that's kind of, you know, it's very much my sense of humor and what I think is fun, and it's again highly specific.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious.
Thank you. Well, hopefully the final product turns out as hilarious as it has the potential to be.
Yeah, definitely. So for non-film, I don't want to say non-film people. I don't know. For people who may not know all the ins and outs about filmmaking, what's like once you have an idea for something, what's the process? How do you get it going?
I mean, it's a never-ending process is the thing. I mean, you know this as an artist that the process is effectively never-ending. And so something that I think is really important for people to know who are starting out, and something that, you know, I try to really practice in my own creative work is that point of view is everything. Your point of view is why the thing is getting made. It's why everybody showed up to set. It's why everybody is volunteering. It's they believe in you. They believe in your vision. So you better have answers for things. And if you don't, you have to make a decision, because that's most of what directing is making decisions about things, whether it's deciding how to direct the actors, where the camera placement should be, who to hire, things like that. Like, it's a lot of decision making, and it's really important. And treat people nicely, because people are only going to show up if you're cool and nice to them. So, but I mean, write the script and know that writing is rewriting. It's a cliche, but I've never heard of a script that, well, actually, I've heard of one script that didn't have to be rewritten, and that is the dinner party episode of The Office, which is a perfect episode of television, but by far not the rule, right?
Yeah.
And so just be open to critique and making sure that everything is serving the film that you want to make, and making sure that it's the best version of the story you can be telling, which is easy to say and much harder to practice. So surround yourself with mentors and people who care about you enough to tell you the truth about things, and just keep practicing. Filmmaking is an expensive medium to practice in, but the more films you make, the more time you spend on set, the more you learn from other people's failures or your own, the better at this you'll be.
Yeah, definitely.
And watch a lot of movies, and really watch it. Don't just play around on your phone. But really watch it and understand, why is this movie so popular, or why is it so unpopular? What isn't working about it? What do people like about it? What don't they like about it? Because understanding that you're making something for an audience is also a really big component of it. It's not just for personal satisfaction most of the time. It's usually a business where you have investors and you have to pay those people back.
Yeah, definitely. That's important.
I don't know if that's a helpful answer, but that is the one I have.
Perfect. So have you seen any good movies lately?
Ooh, I haven't watched a ton of new movies lately. I saw Death Becomes Her for the first time. Love that movie.
Nice.
It's a wonderful, wonderful movie. Can't believe I hadn't seen it sooner. It's basically the kinds of movie that I would love to make over and over again.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of new movies, I haven't seen anything new recently. I'm excited to see Promising Young Woman.
Yes. I want to see that.
The last movie I saw in movie theaters before the pandemic was Birds of Prey. Saw it 4 times in theaters. I stand by that movie. It's a perfect movie. And I think it deserves a lot more respect than it gets. So yeah, there's a lot to love about that film. In terms of, but I don't think I've seen any new movies lately. I'm really excited to watch I Care a Lot, starring Rosamund Pike. It's gonna be super awesome. I think it's gonna be on Netflix, and it premiered at TIFF last year, I think.
Okay, cool.
So lots to look forward to in terms of stuff coming out on Netflix. I desperately miss going to the movies all the time, though.
Me too. Yep, I agree. Well, I think that's it. I think that's
it. Well, Allison, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for agreeing to do this.
Of course, anytime.
Cool. So this was live, but we're gonna repost it, and we'll have it on our YouTube channel. So
perfect.
People will be able to see it. But if anybody has any questions or anything else, you can always contact us and we can ask Sav.
Cool.
Anything like that. So thank you very much, Sav.
You are welcome.